Yo, in a recent interview that I had with Samson Mow, he predicted that we will see $1 million Bitcoin faster than most people are expecting. And some of Samson's reasoning for why has to do with a recent interview of Anthony Scaramucci, where he dropped some bombshell information. But before we get into what Scaramucci exactly said, let's play the clip from the Samson interview. Let's check it out. You are saying $1 million Bitcoin. What's the logic behind that? Well, like what? And not only $1 million Bitcoin, which we all know is going to come eventually, but $1 million Bitcoin in a very, very short amount of time.
Right. So I think the key message I'm trying to get across is that the macro environment has fundamentally changed. And then I did some analysis, and other people like Macronaut and BitPain and others have also done the math too. And Bitcoin going up 20x is not a difficult thing. It's done it sometimes in the past. So the key here is that everything is different now with the ETFs, with the amount of money able to flow into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And we can very rapidly go up to 1 million. Whether we stay there or not is a different question, but just the lack of supply, because we are constrained. There's about 1.4, maybe 1.6 million BTC on exchanges right now. That's not a lot. And at some point, it's going to dry up, especially at the rate at which the ETFs are hoovering up all the coins at the moment.
I'm assuming you don't believe in the diminishing returns theory.
Not really. I mean, we talk often about hyper-Bitcoinization. And if you believe in hyper-Bitcoinization, then it's impossible to believe in diminishing returns, because there should be no cycles to Bitcoin. If you're going to reach the point of hyper-Bitcoinization whereby we replace all fiat money, then there is nothing to go back to. So what are you measuring the returns in, right? If the US dollar no longer exists, then how can you have diminishing returns? So I guess there's two parts there. One is, will there be another cycle? And I'm not really sure. Like, just because we had 3 similar looking cycles in the past does not mean that we're always going to have this cycle, right? Because it's like flipping a coin. You get heads 3 times doesn't mean the next time it's more likely you're going to get tails. It's a different equation every single time. And the other part is, well, if Bitcoin does replace fiat, then there is no diminishing returns. You're just Bitcoin now. So it's not really possible to measure returns.
So, I mean, there you have it from Samson Mow himself. I'm here joined by Chris Alamo and, of course, our special guest today, Jack from THNDR GAMES. Welcome, boys. Welcome. Happy to have you guys on the show. And look, I have more from Samson recently from the Michael Saylor 100K party. I was there. It was absolutely awesome. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in the culture segment. You can drop questions in the chat. I'll try to answer them. But here is a more recent interview with Samson Mow with Isabel Santos from the 100K party at Michael Saylor's house for New Year's. Let's check it out.
Speaking of, politicians and everything, do you think Bitcoin, Trump would do his conquest and keep his promise of reaching, and having a Bitcoin reserve?
I think so. It's really that they have no choice. They have to create the Bitcoin reserve. They need to buy Bitcoin simply because they need to shore up the US dollar and strengthen it. And I think they view it more as a measure to boost the dollar, but ultimately I think it ends up killing the dollar. And
So again, a couple of reasons here. Let's unpack them. First, the ETF, right? And then, of course, the incoming Trump administration. And they made the announcement in Nashville about potentially introducing a Bitcoin strategic reserve. And this started a domino effect all over the world. We have politicians coming out of Brazil. We have politicians coming out of Russia. We have politicians coming out of the individual states, like the state of Pennsylvania, the state of Ohio, the state of Texas. Of course, a lot of that work's being done by the Satoshi Action Fund and Dennis Porter. So this talk of a strategic Bitcoin reserve is not just a phenomenon in the United States. It's a phenomenon happening worldwide. The United States could be the catalyst, however. And I just want to remind everybody, the United States is not first to do this. El Salvador already has a reserve. In fact, when they got that loan from the IMF, it seems like they used some of that loan money to buy even more Bitcoin, which is absolutely badass by Nayib Bukele. But I know what a lot of you guys are thinking. A lot of politicians, they talk a lot. They say things, they pander to voters, and then when they get into office, they don't really come true. Well, here's Anthony Scaramucci essentially talking about how Trump actually might have the votes in the legislative branch of the United States, which is the House of Representatives, is the lower house, and then the Senate, which is the upper house. He actually might have the votes to get this bill passed. And if you look at the Polymarket odds, and I like the betting odds markets, they're a lot more accurate at predicting events. It's around 34. It was at an all-time high of like 48%. So, I mean, that's pretty significant. And I agree with Samson. I think that if a law gets passed, or even if Trump does it by executive order, anything related to Bitcoin, I would not be surprised. And again, this is a big statement, but I would not be surprised if we saw a $500,000 Bitcoin next year. I mean, this year, it's already 2025. And the inauguration is literally 18 days from now. So anyways, I'm going to play you guys the clip by Anthony Scaramucci, and then we're going to open it up to the panel and have a discussion. Let's check it out.
Do you think we'll get a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Do you think that's a thing?
I do, actually.
What does that look like, do you think?
They've got the votes. Haggerty wants it. McCormick wants it.
They have the votes in the Senate, do you think?
I think so, yeah. There's 53.
Really?
I do think so, yes.
For like to her bill to get 1 million Bitcoin, right? That was her full bill,
yeah,
right?
Well,
to keep the 200,000 then.
This stuff gets horse traded. So you'll probably have 200 won't get sold. They'll probably buy another 400,000 or 500,000 Bitcoin.
What?
Over the next.
You don't think
that's
this is
going to happen?
real? Senator, talk about it.
Let me tell you why I think it will happen. Okay, Trump wants it to happen, and he's got the Senate Banking Committee. Tim Scott wants it to happen. He's going to be the chair of the Senate Banking Committee. Bessent wants it to happen. If you're telling me there are no Democrats, and I don't believe this because a lot of Democrats voted for the SOB 121 bill. If you looked at the dispersion of vote, it was a bipartisan approval of that bill. And by the way, Ryan, it was if you were 40 or 50, let's say you were below the age of 60, you voted for the bill if you were a Democrat. If you were a fossil like Elizabeth Warren or Sherrod Brown, you voted against it. So if you're telling me there are no Democrats that are going to vote for that, then I'll say, okay, then we're not going to get it. But I don't see that. I think Ro Khanna would vote for it. I think there's a lot of Democrats that look at it and say, if Bitcoin is digital gold and we have $600 billion of gold on reserve at our bank, in the Federal Reserve Bank, you're telling me we couldn't put 75 to 100.
So let's summarize this. This is a wee bit back in because there's a lot of components here, right? You have Samson Mow basically saying, Nico, you know what? I think diminishing returns is BS. You have Samson Mow essentially saying, you know what? And he was saying it when Bitcoin was at 50K. Bitcoin's at 100K. It's only, or roughly 100K. It's only a 10X to $1 million. Like, that's not that crazy in Bitcoin terms. But if you take into account the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF, allowing massive institutional inflows. And then you have, of course, Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, corporate treasury strategy being vindicated in 2024. And then, of course, the United States going in and other nation states that have the power of money printers going in there and not only buying Bitcoin, but also basically giving it a rubber stamp of approval and saying, you know what, this thing is legit in the eyes of countries. You know, all the stars and planets are aligning for this year, 2025. I have to get used to it in my head. We're already in 2025 to be a very, very explosive year for Bitcoin. And again, like I said, if this strategic Bitcoin reserve thing comes to fruition, I would not be surprised whatsoever if we hit $500,000 per Bitcoin by the end of the year. We shall see. 18 days into the inauguration. We also have to hold Trump accountable for his promise to Bitcoiners for freeing Ross Ulbricht. But man, it's really, really exciting. One last thing I'll say is historically, Bitcoin tends to have the parabola year the year after the halving. If you look at throughout all of Bitcoin's history, the halving year is pretty good, but it's the year after the halving that you get the vast majority of the returns. And that is 2025. That is this year. So very exciting stuff overall. I agree with Samson. I think we're going to see $1 million Bitcoin a lot sooner than people anticipated. Anyways, I want to pass it on to my co-host today, the legendary Chris Alamo in the house. Chris, what are your takes on Samson? Is he being too bullish? What's your take?
How's it going, guys? How's it going, gentlemen? Happy New Year. Happy 2025. Excited to be here with you guys as always. Yeah, I think he's being a little too bullish. Maybe I hate to say that I'm the bear, but I do think while we are ecstatic about the Bitcoin reserve, the Bitcoin strategic reserve, I do think, I trust Polymarket. They were a reliable source heading into the elections. They kind of only give it a 30% chance of it happening. I guess we're still pre-Trump taking office, but right now they're still pricing in a 30% chance that it actually occurs. That being aside, I know Eric Trump spoke at Bitcoin Mania and was talking about that they're really excited to make a Bitcoin strategic reserve. The one thing that I'll caveat with Trump and his family is they're real estate guys. And while we're excited that they're happy about Bitcoin, I wouldn't call them Bitcoin maxis. I mean, you've kind of seen their they've kind of dabbled in shit coins. They have shit coins on their balance sheet with their disclosures and stuff. And that's not anything to take anything against for them. But I do think that let's just play this out game theory wise. Let's just say we start buying a strategic reserve. The dollar strengthens. The dollar has already been strengthening over the last year and a half, 2 years, basically since the Russia-Ukraine conflict. It had a slight dip, but I follow Ansar Lindner, avid Bitcoiner and great macro economist. He basically says that the dollar was going to keep strengthening, and a lot of people didn't think it was going to weaken. We were going to a recession. I don't think that's the case, but if the dollar strengthens too much, that becomes a problem in terms of an international stage. What that means is basically the amount of dollars can buy more and more goods from external nations or externally. So that means that we can buy things and basically consume resources of other countries. I do think that if it strengthens too much, then the H-1B visa, that's been kind of the talk of the town, that more incentivizes companies to look and paying people outside of the United States. So basically, in summary, I do think that there will have to be a relief valve, and I do think Bitcoin will be that relief valve, meaning that whether Trump sells off or maybe even holds off buying even more than they were planning to buy in order to allow it to fall down slightly. Otherwise, if the dollar strengthens too much, you could see a recession in the sense that things are getting too expensive. Real estate starts taking a plunge. Stock market starts taking a plunge. As we've seen in history's past, not only Bitcoin's the first thing to move down, it's also the first thing to recover and move up. So I do think it is a little too bullish right now, but I'd love to be proven wrong on that.
Absolutely. I think that's incredible points. Good points by the legendary Chris Alamo. Of course, we have our special guest for today. We have Jack from THNDR Games in the house. Of course, you guys know we're big fans of THNDR Games here at Simply Bitcoin. Jack, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Cheers, guys. Happy to be here. Excited.
So do you have any thoughts on Samson Mow's predictions, $1 million Bitcoin? Do you have any thoughts about the talk of the strategic Bitcoin reserve? What are your takes on everything?
Yeah, I think the talk's cheap. So that's my first takeaway is politicians can say whatever they want and they'll talk more and more about something that is, they don't have to do anything if they're just talking about it. So I'll believe it when I see it. I think you hit the nail on the head with the first promise was to free Ross on day one. Then I'll start getting excited. If he actually does what he says he's going to do, then we can talk about strategic reserve a bit more bullishly. But I'm confident that, the game theory is going to work out, and that's the direction that the governments are going to have to go, is start backing their governments with Bitcoin as a savings vehicle, because I want my government to do it, and it's going to be the will of the people eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good point, right? Talk is cheap. Actions are expensive. We shall see 18 days until inauguration, the first BitPro Bitcoin administration. is going to be sworn into office. It's going to be a historic year for Bitcoin like last year. Last year was absolutely historic. We got the ETF approval. We have Michael Saylor's vindication on the public company front. And of course, the first pro Bitcoin administration sworn into office. Let's see if they keep their promise in freeing Ross. We shall see. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, before we start the show, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor. Of course, I'm talking about Bitcoin Well. Bitcoin Well is the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack. It's the best place to buy Bitcoin on chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the United States of America. It's a publicly traded company. You can also check out their ticker symbol, and it is completely non-custodial. So this is what makes Bitcoin Well completely different, because when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, and as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address, meaning you can't even leave your funds on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state, because after all, self-custody is the revolution. For higher net worth individuals that are looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more and are looking for a white glove tailored Bitcoin experience, you're tired of dealing with that finicky Coinbase UI, you're tired of dealing with support, they don't answer you for weeks and weeks, you actually want to pick up the phone and speak to a human being, you got to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. You can buy Bitcoin with them, you could sell Bitcoin with them, you're going to have a personal representative assigned to you, of which you can call, you can text, and you can communicate to whenever you want, when you want to buy, when you want to sell, or if you even have questions about Bitcoin in general. So check out Bitcoin Well Infinite today. Go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC to get started. Before we start the show, we're already at 100 likes. Help us break 150 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. So again, smash that like button. All right, everybody, let's jump into it. Let's get to the numbers. We have lots to talk about today. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. All right, everybody, you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. Remember, don't write down your seed words, stamp them onto titanium so they can survive the test of time. All right, everybody, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $96,400. Block height, 877,524. Sats per dollar, 1,037. Market cap, 1.91 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.35%. Percentage issued, 94.3%. Decline from all-time high, negative 10.9%. Realized monetary inflation continues to go down, 1.1%. Taking fiat currencies to absolute schools. Speaking of fiat currencies, we got Opti's ex-girlfriend in the house, Christine Lagarde, wishing all of us a happy new year. Let's check it out. I think she does drop something about the digital euro, which I find interesting. Let's check it out, and then we'll talk about it.
You a happy new year. Happy, healthy, prosperous 2025. So we have a big, heavy agenda at the ECB. We have made significant progress in 24 in bringing down inflation, and hopefully 25 is the year when we are on target as expected and as planned in our strategy. Of course, we will continue our efforts to ensure that that inflation stabilizes sustainably at that 2% medium-term target. We will also be reviewing our monetary policy strategy. Why do we do that? We just did that in 21. Well, we're doing it to ensure that it still fits the changing world in which we live, and that we are fit for 25 and following. Another significant development on the horizon is our digital euro. We are in the preparation phase, and we are expecting European legislation. Once that is done, we will decide whether we move forward with developing a digital form of cash, your digital euro. And you know, we are also working on banknotes. We are in the process of redesigning our banknotes. It's a long-standing exercise that will not be completed in 25, but significant moves will take place with the design phase. It reflects a commitment to innovation, while also preserving the trust and security that our currency represents, both in banknote form and in digital form. So we have a lot on the agenda for the ECB. And as that work begins, let me once again wish all of you from within or of course outside the ECB a very, very great start to 25 and a happy new year.
Okay, so much to unpack. Really glad that we're covering this. I love
the live comment too.
I love how, you know, she starts in the beginning and she's like, wishing you a prosperous 2025. And then we want to get back to that 2% number. You know, right now, Bitcoin's inflation rate is 1.1%. And this is going to go down forever, right? I think when we started covering this, it was like 1.83. And then, of course, the halving and, you know, Bitcoin's absolute scarcity is going to ensure this eventually goes to zero. And, you know, like, what is this 2% number? They don't even have an answer for the 2% number. And then, you know, kind of dystopian sneaking it in there because they had a marketing problem with the central bank digital currency. People weren't receptive to that. So they did a bait and switch, and now they're calling it the digital euro. And, you know, we're so excited, this legislation, it's going to fix things. And it's very insidious when she says your digital cash. Listen, anyone could make Bitcoin. You plug in a miner, you pay for electricity, you can make Bitcoin. You can run Bitcoin software and have a copy of the entire Bitcoin blockchain in your home, verify transactions. You can take self-custody of your Bitcoin. Can you audit the ECB? No. Can you make more euros? No. You go to jail for counterfeiting. So, like, again, this is narrative trench warfare in the battleground of the internet. She's trying to meme something into existence. She's trying to play on the fact that people are not informed on fiat money and trying to convince you that she is working for you, that she is there to help you. But if you look at the raw data, you know, and this kind of explains why they hate Bitcoin so much. I would too if I was a central banker. It ends the racket. On a 5-year time scale, if you've been saving in Bitcoin, euros have lost 88% of their value. On a 3-year time scale, they've lost 51% of their value. On a 1-year time scale, they've lost 72% of their value. Like on a monthly time scale, they've lost 35% of their value. And let's say all goods and services, because that's one of the things that central bankers are always talking about, and politicians are always framing it as if, you know, like, this is all for you. We're trying to help you. We're trying to save you. We're trying to bring everything under control. And what Bitcoiners are basically saying, like, look, dude, like, you know, we don't need you to help us. If you start opting out of the system today and you start saving and earning in Bitcoin, you can start taking advantage of a unit of account, of a currency that actually values your time and your energy and your work, right? So a house, even with housing prices in the United States doubling due to all the money printing that occurred during the pandemic, if you've been saving in Bitcoin on a 5-year time scale, housing has gotten 90% cheaper. The stock market, 77% cheaper. Gold, 94% cheaper. Oil, 94% cheaper. The dollar, 87% cheaper. And it just goes on. Like food, this is one of the major reasons as to why Trump got elected. People were so frustrated with inflation, right? On a 5-year time scale, everything has gotten cheaper compared to Bitcoin. This is what happens when, something has absolute scarcity. It's infinity divided by 21 million. So, as much as she wants to meme this into existence, that, the European Central Bank is your friend and it's a public good and it's here to help you, I would say, Bitcoin actually has the proof of work behind it. It actually has the results behind it. I think they just make things work and make things worse. And you have a choice as an individual to choose. You don't have to wait for an election to choose which unit of account you choose to live on. And I promise you, I've seen this happen so many times. It's my 9th year in Bitcoin. Okay. Have seen this happen so many times. If you choose to move to a Bitcoin standard, your life will get progressively cheaper over time. The things around you, whether that's housing, whether that's food, whether that's anything, will get progressively cheaper, allowing you to save for the future, allowing you to plan for the future. And that gives you back hope. That gives you back optimism. People like Christine Lagarde, people like the institutions like the European Central Bank, they steal that from you through inflation, through monetary debasement. So she can have a nice curtain behind her. She can be dressed up very pretty. She could put the captions on there and basically try to connect with the younger generations. But at the end of the day, that 2% number is 2% because it's not big enough for people to realize that they're getting stolen from, because that's essentially what it is. Every single day that Bitcoin exists, it continues to prove that money can exist without inflation. Not only can exist without inflation, people that use the money that doesn't have inflation actually live better lives. So don't let them gaslight you. Get informed so that you can spread Bitcoin. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Chris. Chris, what are your thoughts on Opti's ex-girlfriend, Christine Lagarde? She's trying to spread it out there. She's trying to get people to use this ECB, this digital euro. It's not called a central bank digital currency anymore. They're changing the name. They're hoping that people won't notice. What's your take?
I think there was a lot in that short clip. I mean, she says we're targeting 2% inflation. Nico, that they obviously artificially manipulate CPI numbers to be lower. So it looks like things aren't getting more expensive when in actuality, they're getting way more expensive when you compare it to like the Chapwood Index or Shadow Stats or any of the other metrics. When you keep their own inflation numbers from the 70s or 80s, things are way worse. And those were their own numbers back then, but they adjusted. Instead of getting, the grade, you replace it with chicken. Instead of chicken, you get they're always adjusting it. So she's basically saying we're targeting 2% of theft of you and your family and your loved ones if you don't save in Bitcoin. And that's only we're targeting it. If it's higher, they don't care. They'll lie and gaslight you into saying, oh, we didn't steal as much, or hey, inflation's actually gone down. Yeah, maybe the inflation change has gone down, but it still compounds on itself. If last year was 7% inflation and this year's only 2% inflation, it's not just a 9% increase, it's a 2% increase on the adjusted increase of 7%. So it's even worse. It compounds with inflation, which is horrible. The digital euro, there's nothing to add there. It's basically just a CBDC. They want to get rid of cash and they want to pigeonhole you into their own central bank digital currency. And then the irony at the very end, she's like, yeah, we're trying to make it even more, trust us even more and guarantee you more trust and privacy. It's like, we don't trust you. You're inflating our dollars away, our fiat currencies away. You're lying to us. You're gaslighting us. You're not trying to make it more private with the CBDC. And she was even like, oh, we're trying to insecure security for who? For us or for them? So it's all a control game. They're trying to pitch, their own products for their own benefit and their benefactors and friends.
100%. 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. Guys, we're at 171 likes. Help us break 200 likes within the first 40 minutes of the show. We already have 2,000 live viewers across YouTube and X. And of course, shout out to the Rumble audience. We're at 127 of you guys watching live on Rumble. So again, if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button and sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of the show, because we got a ton of Bitcoin content for you guys. Jack, what's your take on Chrissy Lagarde wishing everybody such a, she cares about you. She really wants to wish you a happy new year. She's there to serve you. The euro is there to serve you. It's there to make your life better. Jack, what's your take?
Okay, yeah, my take is slightly different, is that I never see those things as like competitive to Bitcoin because of the obvious reasons, but really there's like an arms race for whose digital currency, what country's digital currency will be the most like widely used, the most popular. Because if your country can control the digital space with your own currency, you can export your inflation to other countries and other people around the world. So that's the game they're playing. And I think that America it's almost like America have to do exactly the same. Otherwise, their tool of exporting inflation from the US dollar is going to be eroded away as well. So I think there's going to be a massive boom in it. And the fact that the EU are they're actually the one continent or group of countries that are actually ahead in trying to steal this kind of like space, I think. So I'm kind of worried. I'd be worried about it from an American perspective if I was an American, but I'm not worried about it I'm from Britain, so I'm not. Our currency is not. We used to be the currency used around the world, and we were playing this game of exporting inflation around the world, and then we lost that. America now has it, and perhaps Europe has finally found a way to make their currency useful to them.
So you said that Americans should be worried. How so? Why should Americans be worried?
50 years, like on a big time frame, because the whole world uses the US dollar as like the reserve currency, and if someone in some country is using their dollars to save them their money, then if the US government prints more money to give to their own citizens, they're basically taxing all these other people around the world, and that is what the UK did. I don't know, 200-300 years ago. I'm not very good at history. And if whoever has the digital currency that the world uses, the most of the world uses, can like inflate their own currency, like you said, and America should want to keep that as the number one currency to export inflation from, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I agree. I think, but what I would say is like the Samson, point was really, really, was really, really interesting because, he's basically making the case that by the virtue of the United States adopting Bitcoin, it actually strengthens the dollar. And I don't see how a digital euro, like I feel like a digital euro is just a step in the wrong direction. And I think a lot of people are just not. If you see this, like for example, like in Nigeria, they rolled out a digital CBDC equivalent of their fiat currency. It's called the Naira, and adoption was like people just didn't want it, right? I see CBDCs as like, it's something that's trying to solve a problem that doesn't need to be fixed. It's kind of like a justification by central bankers to, a justification and an attempt by central bankers for them to maintain their control and monopoly over money. I don't see how it particularly would help the European Union going down this path. I would say that what would help the European Union, specifically their citizens, would be adopting a Bitcoin standard and actually giving their citizens more freedom to choose the currency they want to use, rather than this bureaucracy in Brussels that's essentially dictating the lives of millions of Europeans. Like that's my perspective. Maybe I'm I'm too American and we're
well,
rebellious
just like
in spirit.
governments are the most evil corporation that exists. They must have killed millions and millions of people at this point. The government, if you think of it as a business, and they're like just so evil. So just assume they're going to do the most evilest thing, which is try to get everyone to use their currency so they can inflate it. And you don't have to limit it to your own country. You got to try and export that product to everyone else. And I think the Bitcoin reserve is decoupled from that. So America are doing that with the dollar, and they want to keep that, and they want everything priced in the dollar. And then they use Bitcoin as a way to like say, oh, like the dollar is strong because we've got the military. The dollar is strong because we've got all of this Bitcoin. So maybe that's what Europe needs to do as well, is back up their economy with good assets like gold, Bitcoin, whatever, a good military, and then they'll have a chance. But if whoever get, like, you can see the stable coins are like the #1 use case in the moment, and for better or worse, that like whoever, like Tether, they're like absolutely insanely, like probably could buy America at this point. Like they're huge. And if a government had that business, then to be honest, I don't know what your opinion is, but why hasn't it happened sooner? It seems like such an obvious, what's taken them so long to build it?
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think you make some really, really good points. Guys, we're going to hit the news. We're going to talk about we were talking about this last week, essentially how the IRS wanted to introduce these reporting requirements for Bitcoin, and the deadline was December 31st. Well, some news broke today on January 2nd that they actually postponed those new reporting requirements. Again, total coincidence, 2 days after the supposed December 31st deadline. So, I find that interesting. And again, I don't think that all of this is happening coincidentally. I think that this is happening because elections have consequences, and we know how the incoming Trump administration supposedly feels about the industry. Again, Inauguration Day is coming up, January 18th. Historic moment in Bitcoin's history. The first pro-Bitcoin administration is going to be sworn into office. We also might have special content for you guys in regards to some special interviews with some people in Washington, D.C. And I think I will be in D.C. for the inauguration, so looking forward to that as well. Hopefully we can get you guys some on-the-ground footage of that historic day. All right, everybody, we're going to get to the news. We have tons to talk about. Stay tuned. And then during the culture segment, we're going to talk about THNDR Games, and we're also going to do a little bit of a recap of the Michael Saylor 100K party. I was there. You guys just drop any questions in the live chat. I'll make sure to answer some of them if you guys have any curiosities about what was happening, about what was it like on the floor. But stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the news. I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet design with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind. All right, everybody, guys, remember, not your keys, not your cheese. You want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If it's not in self-custody, then it's really not your Bitcoin. Anyways, let's get to today's news. We have lots to talk about. So last week, we covered the IRS reporting requirement. So essentially what that was they were changing some of the ways that you were reporting, and what they were recommending was taking screenshots of your wallets, taking screenshots of your balances, taking screenshots of your exchange balances, and all this, paperwork that I think that the vast majority of people did not have the expertise, and it was really, really scary. Also, the FinCEN was requiring small businesses to register with them, right? Luckily, both those things, the FinCEN ruling right now is in limbo. It's still in apparently a lower court put a stop to that.
The Fifth Circuit of Appeals, it's currently in right now for the reporting requirement for small businesses and LLCs.
Appreciate it. And again, I'm going to borrow Elon's, what he's been saying these last couple of weeks on X. Do we live in a democracy or do we live in a bureaucracy? Is this really helping everyday Americans? Perhaps people don't know this about the economy, but the economy is run by small businesses. Yes, the big businesses, they contribute a lot, but the bulk of the economy are small businesses. And if you overburden them with requirements, with bureaucracy, with paperwork, it takes time away from them to focus on their business, to focus on bureaucratic paperwork, right? And it makes the economy less efficient. I believe part of the victory of Donald Trump comes down to this. I think we have an overburdening bureaucracy in the United States. Some people call it the deep state. I call it the administrative state. I don't think it's this grand conspiracy. It just boils down to this. The money printer inevitably makes government bigger. It makes bureaucracy bigger. And because government is non-productive by nature, the only way the government can raise revenue is through taxation, and they tax through two different ways primarily. Number one is income tax, direct taxation. That's not enough. The U.S. government spent $1.7 trillion more than it collected in tax revenue in 2023. And number two is taxation via monetary debasement, taxation via debasement. So again, the question, I believe, isn't what is money. The question is, what is government? So now I'm going to weave it back into this specifically, the FinCEN small business registration requirement. Chris gave you a little bit of an update on this. And then as it relates to Bitcoin, this was crazy. This was nuts. Essentially, you had a deadline until December 31st to get all your paperwork in order. They were requesting people take screenshots of their wallet balances, of their addresses, of their exchange balances. Like, let's throw privacy completely out the window. You had to do all of that to make sure that you were compliant. And then coincidentally, they delay the ruling 2 days after the reporting requirement. That's a total coincidence, I might add. And again, I don't think they would have delayed anything if it wasn't for the incoming administration that is going to be sworn in January 20th of 2025. We hear Trump talking about how he doesn't believe it's fair. There's a Truth Social post on this. It doesn't make sense to him that you have to pay capital gains tax on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is money. Right. But again, he's not in office yet. They're not in power. Trump is not in control of the executive branch until January 20th. So these shenanigans that they're doing right up until the day that he gets inaugurated is absolutely hilarious. I mean, this is lawfare. This is political games. And another thing too, before I pass it on to Chris and we'll read some of the article, is Gary Gensler isn't resigning until the day of the inauguration, which I think is very symbolic. Anyways, Chris, do you want to add to any of this before we check out the article?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, I think this ruling actually passed back in August, but it was very quiet. It was end of August. You know, it was kind of the summertime was coming to a close. I think it was prior to the September like Congress getting together, but it kind of slipped under the radar. And then within the last 2 to 3 weeks, everyone was like, holy shit, we have until December 31st to do this whole time stamping thing for our wallets. They were basically changing from a universal cost basis to a per wallet method. So then even a lot of people that were looking into this, it's like, yo, you should probably consolidate even wallets and stuff. And, you know, that like it's kind of one of those things that's like, you know, take a breath and don't do things very quickly. But a lot of people are kind of panicked. And like you were saying, they're like using timestamps and taking screenshots and all these different things. And then they were recommending, like a lot of influencers were recommending consolidating your wallets. But that's as people in the Bitcoin space know, that's like a huge doxing of your privacy. If you're consolidating UTXOs, a lot of times you're showing how much Bitcoin you have to previous people that were sending you money. So I think this was a whole clusterfuck, to say the least. And, you know, I'm glad that it's being pushed back. I hope that Trump's administration comes in and just kind of like gets rid of this altogether. I don't think that's going to happen, but, you know, I'll be hopeful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very, very, very good summary. And again, like it was insane. Like it was borderline. I called it last week. I said, this is borderline tyrannical. Like small business registration, FinCEN, and then the, you know, this reporting requirement. Mind you, this is coming from a government. The Pentagon has failed 7 audits in a row, and they have 60% of their total assets or budget completely unaccounted for. If you did that as a private citizen, you'd go to jail, right? And they just say, no, we're going to do better next time. Like, again, the problem isn't the rules. The problem is the double standards. The problem is that the politicians that expect us peasants, I guess, to follow these rules, they don't follow it. They don't follow them themselves. And again, that's not a government by the people for the people. That's a government by the government for the government. And my theory of the case is as much as I like Elon with the whole Doge thing and Vivek with the, you know, government efficiency and like whatever, it doesn't solve the root problem. And the root problem is the fact that the government has the ability to create money out of thin air, which they use to fund themselves. And politicians use to fund crazy ideas. I would even make the case that this is what politicians use to fund war too, right? This is a very, very deep rabbit hole. But anyway, so let's get to some of the details. IRS delays Bitcoin cost basis reporting rules until 2026. The IRS announced that it has delayed new Bitcoin tax reporting rules until early 2026. The extension provides brokers with additional time to adjust the cost basis regulations for centralized platforms. The IRS has provided a temporary break for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency investors by delaying new reporting rules that would have required a default accounting method for trades on centralized exchanges. The Treasury Department and the IRS understand that some digital asset brokers may not have in place by January 1st, 2025, the technology needed to accept specific instructions or standing orders communicated by taxpayers. These technology limitations may leave some taxpayers unable to make adequate identifications in conformity with just a bunch of number regulation, whatever. In July, the IRS and Treasury Department introduced rules to determine which cryptocurrency units are sold in brokerage accounts using wallet by wallet accounting. If no accounting method is chosen, the first in, first out method will apply, selling the earliest acquired assets first, which may lead to higher taxable gains during market upswings. The extension will be in effect until December 31st, 2025, giving brokers more time to adapt to different accounting methods. During the relief period, taxpayers can use methods like highest in, first out, or specific identification to choose assets to sell, and enhancing flexibility and potentially reducing tax impact. So again, listen, I'm calling BS here. I scrambled to I scrambled to get compliant. I make sure to get like my accountant, like, dude, what's going on here? You know, because at the end of the day, guys, like if you don't do your taxes, like bad things happen, you know, like bad things happen from a legal perspective. Like, you know, you could see this with the case of Roger Ver. You could see this with the case of John McAfee. Like, you know, and they will make an example out of you specifically too if you work in the Bitcoin industry, right? So it's like you obviously you want to stay, you want to do it. Do I agree with it? No. I think the American public was psyoped into central banking in 1913, which coincidentally, another coincidence, was the first year that they introduced the income tax. I think eventually, democratically and through the legislative process, a lot of this stuff will get repealed, or taxation will get to a point where it kind of makes sense. I think the current like method of taxation, I think, is completely unreasonable. And again, it's not like they are fiscally responsible themselves, right? It's like they're sending billions of dollars to fund wars that you might not necessarily agree with. Not only that, they're spending money they don't have by debasing the currency. So it's like you have to pay taxes on everything. It's absolutely insane. And they're not even using that money to better the country. You're using that money and they're squandering it, right? So, but again, you know, I find it hilarious that, you know, they scared the living bejeebas out of everybody 2 or 3 weeks before the end of the year, basically saying you got to get compliant, you got to make sure you're organized. And then 2 days after the so-called deadline, they were like, oh, no, you know what? Actually, we're going to delay it another year. They did that on purpose. That was 100% on purpose. I have no doubt in my mind. And I also think they're taking advantage of the fact that they're still technically in power for 18 days, the current administration. And we know how the current administration feels about the Bitcoin industry. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Chris, what are your thoughts? It's just like, dude, this is crazy, man. This is nuts. It feels like a mafia. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, I feel like I'm like, you know, like it's like, like if you don't do this, like they're going to lock you in a box. Like, that's what it feels like, you know? And then they make examples out of people that, you know, work on our industry. Like, dude, it's kind of scary, bro. Not going to lie.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'll speak for myself. Like, I thought this was a load of crap. I didn't waste my time doing all this stuff because I was like, I think it's unconstitutional. And if it comes to it, I'd rather fight it in the courts than comply with the stupid crap. Not saying I don't pay my taxes. I do. I'm a law-abiding citizen in all regards. But it also just shows their complete disregard and complete lack of understanding of how Bitcoin works. They're saying, I mean, Nico, you said in the broadcast at the beginning, this is your 9th year in Bitcoin. And they're saying, oh, you have to pay based on the taxes of the very first Bitcoin you bought 9 years ago. And you know, we can look at the charts. That's a crazy astronomical difference. But Bitcoin's on a UTXO based accounting model, meaning that, you know, when you buy UTXO right now, if I buy Bitcoin, I'm buying it at, you know, the price is, let's just say $95,000 right now. But then they're saying, oh, if I were to sell that same lot or that UTXO, that I'd have to do the cost basis of whenever you got into Bitcoin. That's a load of crap. That's not how that works. Imagine I'm telling you, Nico, and the thing that drives me insane is the IRS wants to call it, you know, property, you know, the CFTC wants to call it a commodity. The SEC wants to call these things securities, or like whatever. They want to all have their own definition so they can tax you or fine you or track you in whatever way they want. Well, so, okay, let's go with the FBI's, or not the FBI, the IRS's definition of Bitcoin being a real estate. Like that's the way they define it. So does that mean that if you're a real estate investor, that if you sell a property that you got last, you have 50 properties, we're making up this fictitious example, that means that if I sell my 50th property, that I have to get taxed on the basis of the first property I bought? No, that's asinine. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. And they're just trying to put their claws and teeth into the industry and hamper it. That doesn't even, that's completely disregarding the compliance requirement. I mean, let's look at this realistically. Okay, so you have to hire someone that's a lawyer that's went to law school to like read through these regulations. Let's just assume on a safe side that's $150,000 to $200,000. That doesn't even include any of the mechanisms, the brokerages, the exchanges, Bitcoin Well, Swan, River, Cash App, Strike, any of these. You know, it basically makes it that only the Coinbases can afford to do compliance regulatory like that. So then you're further consolidating it. I mean, the ETFs are an issue by themselves because basically Coinbase is the broker dealer or the authorized participant for the majority of the ETFs. I know there are a few that have broken away, but I guess I'll end my rant there that like they're just trying to put their claws in the industry. They're trying to pick winners and losers. They're trying to dox your privacy, and they're trying to make it harder for people to use Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer manner. Like
100%. I think that the last point you're 100% spot on. I think this comes down to they're making it harder they want to make it harder for people to use peer-to-peer because they know that their existing system, it's going to be very difficult, man. It's going to be very difficult. And I'm seeing this and I'm just like incentivized, like, dude, I'm just going to hold. Like, I'm just going to hold. Like, why am I, like, this is a nightmare. This is crazy. So it's like, not only do you work and, you have to get up every morning, you have to provide for your family, but, you have to dedicate a big percentage, especially if you have a business, if you employ people, if you have investments, like you have to like essentially invest time and money into just paying your taxes, and they still might be wrong, right? Like it's crazy. It's really, really insane. And specifically now that there's jurisdictions like Dubai, there's a specific one in the United States, where there's jurisdictions where you can go there and you can live there a percentage of the year there, and you don't pay any taxes at all, right? And I'm hearing from friends, I'm not going to name any specific ones, but there are friends of mine that have given up their citizenship altogether and have chosen just to leave, right? So this is insane, man. This is crazy. This wasn't what the United States would like. I saw a meme the other day, which was like, like the founding fathers revolted over a 3% like tax, T-tax. And like, here we are, like the highest tax brackets, like 40%. If you live in California, it's like 55. It's insane. Anyways, Jack, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, so I have to do like the accounting for Thunder Games, and it's almost like a massive, we did like 4 million transactions in 1 year. So I was like, couldn't even fit it on a spreadsheet, so I had to build special software just to calculate all this stuff, because it's not just the price you bought it at, it's the price you dispose of it. So we had like 4 million disposals, so it was a nightmare. But yeah, I think in the UK we have slightly different rules, which kind of makes it a little bit easier. We have shared pool accounting, where you don't have to go back to like the UTXO of whatever and dispose of that one. It's like whatever, it's just all in one pool, and it just has an average price. And we have our capital gains tax works that you get like 3,000 is tax free. So for day-to-day like Bitcoin usage, you don't really have to keep track of it, because it's just not going to meet that 3,000. So we have slightly different rules, and maybe they'll like, I don't even like our ones. They sound slightly simpler, but it's just a nightmare. It should just have no tax, obviously, just for simplicity's sake, and so we don't have to pay tax. But that's my take.
Yeah. I'll add one thing to that you said, Jack, though. That's insane that you had 4 million transactions. Just to give people a concept, like Microsoft Excel might be one of the greatest programs ever made. Whatever you say about Microsoft, they're a shitty company overall, but their product of Excel is probably one of the best that's ever made. It just has over about 1 million rows that you can have in a single document without doing something special or creating special software. I think Google Sheets is 1,000, maybe 100,000. So props to you guys for basically doing 4x what a normal Excel sheet can fit for transaction volume.
Yeah, it's a bit of it's, people don't really see that, like they're right in that article that the technology doesn't exist to even do some of these like things, because we had to build our own stuff. Like imagine if, you didn't have a developer team to build special tools to do your own accounting. Is a nightmare. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about Thunder Games. We're going to talk about the Sailor 100K party. If you guys have any questions about the party, drop it in the chat. I'll make sure to answer some of them. So stay tuned. We are about to hit the culture segment. We will be right back. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech, or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com. All right, everybody. Guys, I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, this is going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, April 3rd through the 6th, 2025. Network and learn with fellow Bitcoiners in Dallas, Texas. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. It's a true Bitcoin conference. This is the first Bitcoin conference where me and Opti actually met each other in person. If you're trying to get a job in the industry or network with some of your fellow Bitcoiners, potentially get interviews with them. You know, if you're trying to grow your podcast, in-person meet space events are the place to do it. And the BitBlockBoom conference is one of the best and most well-respected Bitcoin conferences of the year. Get your tickets quickly before the prices increase, and they will. In 16 hours, you will have a price increase. If you use promo code BBB21, again, BBB21, you get $100 off of your tickets. So get your tickets now, scan the QR code, or check the link in the video /podcast description. All right, everybody, I do want to open up the conversation to, let's do a little bit of a recap of the Sailor 100K party. I have some footage of it. Our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine and my sister of Zemo Media put together an amazing production covering the event, doing drone shots and everything. So I have some video of you guys I have some video of it for you guys. I'll fast forward it. We can have that in the background playing while we talk about it. But yeah, it was absolutely awesome. Sailor had his entire Miami estate decked out. He had, he had a dance floor. He had the pools open. He had food. He had his yacht open at the end. It was a great party. He had dancers, acrobatic dancers. He had a red carpet. It was an absolutely phenomenal event. Also, he had the podcasting station open. He had some of the biggest Bitcoin YouTubers and content creators. I was there on the desk as well with Ruzo and Alan of Bitcoin Magazine. So it was a wonderful event. It was a great event, and it was a great time. So that's why I was not available for the last 2 days. Opti was holding it down, but no, we didn't hit 100K. We didn't hit 100K during the party. Anyways, I heard we are close to 300K, 300 likes on YouTube. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. But yes, this is where I've been the last 2 days. I've been recovering and going to the Sailor party. I want to talk about why our guest is here today. THNDR Games. THNDR Games is win Bitcoin by playing games. You could download a lot of these on the App Store, like Clinch, like Tetro Tiles, Club Bitcoin Solitaire, Bounce Along with the blockchain, Classic Snake, Can You Reach 100 miles an hour, and Bitcoin Bubble Shooter. So, Jack, could you give a little bit of a lowdown? What is THNDR Games? That sounds way too good to be true. What do you mean? Like you can? What do you mean you can earn Bitcoin playing games? That sounds way too good to be true. What's going on there?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of, as you point out, a few categories of games there. The main way that you can earn Bitcoin in our games is we have competitions that are free to enter and prize draws and different tournaments. So we have a lot of different games like classic solitaire games or arcade games like racing games. And basically, just by playing the games, you get automatically into a tournament. And then depending on how good you are at the game is how many sats you win. So everyone always wins at least one sat entering a tournament. So everyone wins. And yeah, you can just pick a game that you enjoy and play and earn some sats. And then we have different versions of our games, which are skill-based wagering games. So after you've earned a few sats in, say, the solitaire game, you can take those and use them to compete against other people. So you can put your own sats on the line and try and win even more sats if you're brave enough. So yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. And again, like how does it work for you guys? Like, it feels like you guys are just giving up Bitcoin for people to play games. Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah, so that is what we're doing. So we have some partners and we have advertisers. And so what we do is we share some of those advertising revenues with the users. So during the gameplay, you'll see, banner ads, just the normal advertisements you would see in any normal mobile game. So we share those back with the users. And we also have partners who are like Bitcoin wallets. So we've worked with Cash App, Speed, Zebedee, Wallet Satoshi in the past, Pouch, and we try to onboard people and teach them how to get their first Bitcoin wallet. So you can imagine someone who's new to Bitcoin, they come to the game, they win some Bitcoin, and then they need to learn how to cash it out from our game. So then we onboard them to their first Bitcoin wallet, which is nearly always a Lightning wallet. And when we onboard those users, that is like an advertising placement. So we get a commission for that, and we obviously give that back to the users in the tournaments as well.
That's awesome, dude. That's pretty cool. And again, it sounds like aligned incentives, right? Like you guys benefit from it, but also your users benefit from it too. I'm assuming the payouts are in Lightning. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the payouts are all in Lightning. That's what I alluded to earlier in the show. We had like 4 million transactions a year or something. It might be more. To be honest, once we got to the first million, I stopped counting. But yeah, it's millions. And but essentially you can cash out as little as 1 Satoshi, which wasn't possible before with any other types of fiat payment in rewarded games. You used to have like a PayPal cash outs in some games, and that you'd have to get to like $5 before you could even withdraw, which would take like 6 months of playing, which no one would do. So it was not a very good solution. So Bitcoin's great because, specifically over the Lightning Network, we can cash out 1 Satoshi at a time. So people can literally download the game and within like 15 minutes win some Bitcoin and then just withdraw it.
Absolutely. I mean, dude, that is awesome. Playing games. I mean, literally getting paid to play games. Like that is incredible. That is really cool. Chris, do you have any questions for Jack? Well, let's take advantage of him while he's here.
Yeah, Jack, I was going to ask. So, I mean, obviously many Bitcoiners, or, I'll lump myself in with that, have probably heard of THNDR Games, or they're like, oh, that's so cool playing games for earning sats. But I'm assuming like the vast majority of the people that download your games are just casual gamers and they've not really heard about Bitcoin, or maybe you've heard about Bitcoin but don't know how it works. So how's the onboarding, or how do you what's the feedback back from people that may not be quintessential Bitcoiners or Bitcoin maxis?
Yeah, I think they love it. We'll start with the bottom line up front. They love it. It's so easy, especially with like the Lightning address. That does make it a lot easier. They just like being able to cash out immediately. We have about, Desiree, my co-founder, knows the numbers off the top of her head, but I think it's about 80% of users who download our games don't have a Bitcoin wallet, so they have to download one. So we are onboarding quite a lot of people, and it's about 40% of those people who download then go on to actually win some Satoshis and cash out. So every day we have like a North Star metric, which is like how many new Bitcoiners we've minted. So that was kind of like a internal goal, is like just give as many people Bitcoin as possible. And I did see someone on your chat say that thanked me for giving him his first Bitcoin. So I'm pleased that I saw that.
What do you mean? Someone earned a whole Bitcoin?
Oh no! He said
no. The first
I was like, damn, what game is he playing? I'm in the wrong career, bro. God damn. But yeah, no, that's incredible. That's really awesome, guys. You can go to THNDR.gg. For our audio listeners, it's spelled THNDR.gg to visit THNDR Games today. You'll see all the different games and the different platforms it's for. So some games are for iOS, some games are for Android, some games are for both. You can check out all the games there and literally get paid in Bitcoin to play games. It's an actual thing. It's real. It's really, really cool. So go check out Thunder Games today, and I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. Almost 3,000 live viewers across all platforms. You reached 320 likes on YouTube alone. We appreciate you all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is January 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Nico Moran. It's my legendary co-host, Chris Alamo, and our special guest for today, Jack from Thunder Games. Again, go visit Thunder Games at THNDR.GG, thunder.gg. All right, everybody, smash the like button if you guys enjoyed the show. We will see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.